Here are some ideas on how to make your own curriculum, and I will be sharing the one I made for my 3-year-old as an example. I know most of you are thinking that 3 is too young, but this isn't meant to be rigorous. I don't think 3 is too young to think about how to enrich their minds. Most of human brain development happens at a younger age after all. I understand that this can be a very controversial topic, so I want to emphasize I am not telling people what to do. These are just ideas and examples that you can be aware of. If you are an unschooler or you are already set on how you want to homeschool, then you can skip the video. I am not trying to criticize any other forms of homeschooling. I am not an expert, but I read a lot from experts and I want to share what has been working for us. You can take whatever you want out of it. I also want to really emphasize that my homeschooling plan is a guide, not to be followed strictly. I suggest loose consistency, and that was the key to our homeschooling success. Making goals. First off, as you begin to homeschool, I personally recommend establishing goals. There are different types of goals that I will be talking about. Explore self-interest goals, learning goals, and experience goals. Doing stuff, activities, that kind of stuff. The first goal is all about exploring your students' own interests. My 3-year-old's interests take precedence over everything I want to teach. Whenever he asked about a subject or wanted to do pretend play, because that's learning too, I immediately would drop everything I was going to talk about at that moment and nurture his interests. For example, the other day he asked about dolphins, and we are lucky enough to live near dolphins. We drove by the ocean just to see them, and I reserved books at the library about it, and we watched YouTube videos on the subject. And as I sat beside him, I paused every time there was a mention of a word he might not know so I could explain. It was like a teachable moment. There was the word extinct, for example. Then we went down the rabbit hole to find out what animals are extinct. The point of this is whenever my student shows interest in a topic, I find as many ways possible to explore that interest so he can delve as deep as he wants to go. Establish learning goals. Outside of their interests, I suggest also having learning goals. Use your discretion. Be realistic. Have your goals for the year, then break them down to smaller, achievable goals you can do in a week or a day. There are different ways you can go about making goals. For instance, you can refer to private preschool curriculums available online. Also, consider that there are some skills 3-year-olds learn better than a 13-year-old, such as foreign languages, ear training in music, and gymnastics. Also, work off of overall goals. Do you have a master plan? I know that sounds kind of crazy, but what do you want your kids to know by the time they are 18? You often hear people say, oh, why don't they teach kids how to do their taxes or cook in school? So whenever those moments come up, I have a Google Doc on my phone with my big wish list that I add to so I don't miss anything. I don't have my son coming up to me and be like, hey, you never taught me this. Well, I have a big list and I add to it all the time. So whenever I have an idea on the go, it could be in the middle of the night, I just add it on my phone with the Google Doc app. Now I have this big wish list. When I was making my curriculum for my 3-year-old, I referred to the master plan and thought of what could be adapted for a 3-year-old. For example, I want my kids to have a strong command of cooking by the time they are 18. So at 3 years old, as an activity, I would have a game where he smells spices and talk about their names. We have a garden. He knows the names of the plants we grow. Can you please give us a tour of the garden? Tell me everything we have, okay? Kian, what is this called? Okay, and what is this?
Oh, strawberries.
Very good. And what are those? Oh, don't eat the dill right now. What are those?
Lentils. Good.
Very, very, very good. And he knows the names of the utensils we use, and we talk about ingredients we need to make smoothies or cookies. He helps me make waffles. We even made ice cream. And for nutrition, I had this game, so he gets the concept of nutrition labels. I showed him like literal servings in bowls, and then I used pom-poms in front of it to show how many grams of sugar each item had. We have honey, peanut butter, water, apple juice, milk. And we put a container in front of each thing. And how many grams of sugar does water have? How many sugar bugs?
0.
0 grams of sugar. The serving, according to the label, only has 1. Okay, how many sugar bugs do the milk have? 6 grams of sugar.
That's so bad.
It's so bad. And we're going to talk about how many grams of sugar honey has. It had 17 grams of sugar. So yeah, we finished the serving of apple juice almost. And which one had the most grams of sugar? Which one had the most?
Apple juice.
Yes. So which one is the healthiest thing to have here right now?
Water.
Yes. So what should we do about apple juice? We should add water, right? To make it healthier?
Yeah.
And there's also this really great show on Netflix by Barack and Michelle Obama called Waffles and Mochi. And they talk about foods for kids. It's really well produced. Obviously, 3 is too young to be a chef, but there are so many aspects of cooking a 3-year-old can easily learn through sensory, fun, and games. So with that, these were our learning goals this year. Fluent in French, basic Spanish, learn to read, math, get the concept of numbers 1 to 10, adding and subtracting, cycling without training wheels, and music foundations. I'm happy and surprised to say he achieved all these goals this year except subtracting. I just didn't go that far, and I'm already happy with these results, and my son worked really hard. Experience goals. We also had what I call experience goals. With this, there is no expectation of memorization. These are just interesting ways to be exposed to information and have enriching experiences. For example, when I taught him about certain cultures like Japanese culture, we spent a week immersed in that theme. We went to Japanese restaurants, I played Japanese music, I tried cooking Japanese food, I got books from the library, cookbooks, travel books, and we also watched hours of Japanese virtual tours on YouTube. I highly recommend it. It's actually more fun than traveling there probably, or not, I don't know, but I really like those videos. Our experience goals includes art, drama, pretend play, safety, manners, all about me, cooking, nutrition, gardening, ancient Egypt. And for geography, I have Japan, Mexico, history, 1920s. This is where I show him YouTube videos of the 1920s or show him what the clothes were like back then and so on. Paid curriculums. I highly suggest getting curriculums on specific subjects. I don't recommend all-in-one curriculums, personally. No one is an expert in everything. For example, for math, I got a specific curriculum from someone with both a math degree and an elementary teaching certificate from Harvard, with kids of her own and a track record. That sounds like a qualified person to me, and this book is called Preschool Math at Home by Kate Snow. It has been really helpful for us. She recommends starting at 4 actually, but I try to adapt the activities to my 3-year-old son, and I'm so surprised he actually understands the concept of adding at this age. What's 1 plus 1?
2.
Show me how you did it.
1, 2.
Okay, show me 2 plus 2.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Very good. 3 plus 2.
3 plus 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, thank you. For literacy, I got a program that also has a track record. It's called Children Learning Reading, and I bought Bob books from Scholastic. These are amazing early reader books. The library also has many early reader books too that are worth borrowing. I made sure to read to my son daily, of course, as well, because that is also very important. I am always at the library borrowing books. I am a professional library borrower. For other subjects, I got specific books on science from actual scientists and arts and crafts books from actual artists and so on. But for science and art, for some reason, I had better luck finding activity ideas on YouTube. To teach French, I couldn't find a curriculum online for toddlers, so I hired a native-speaking professional teacher online to just chat with my son. I mean, I speak to my son too, but I am not a native level speaker. So it's pricey and effective, but that alone isn't enough. You have to do a lot of support work for it to be super effective. The most important thing is to create an immersive environment so your kid picks up French the same way they learned English. Now, there are a lot of techniques you can do for that, such as reading books in French, singing songs. There's just so much to say about this subject alone, and I have a video just about that, and I'll put a link in the description below. But I also want to mention, if you are interested in creating an immersive environment in French, I recommend this coloring book, Salut Squares. It literally has so many phrases you could say to your kids while they color, and you can sound like an authentic French parent. There is even a handy QR code on each page so you can get the pronunciation right. It's super affordable, and I'll put the Amazon link below. This coloring book was actually made by me, a parent with a genuine interest in having their kids speak French. There's even one in Spanish called Hola Octagons. Workbooks can be really helpful. And yes, I casually also use a variety of workbooks we find at the discount stores. Also, apps can be good for reinforcing what you teach and introducing new topics. I really like the ABC Mouse app and Edoki Academy. There are many good apps out there. For the Edoki Academy app, I made the settings in French to further immersion. So he is doing the activities in French, not just like learning nouns. There are so many curriculums out there, many of which are religious and I'm not, so I encourage you to do your research. You can look at Amazon reviews, you can join homeschooling groups on Facebook and search for past posts about curriculum recommendations. Be careful about posting in these groups though. I recommend looking for past posts rather than taking the time to write a post because it can easily get catty and you can't afford to waste time away from your kids justifying yourself to people on the internet. There are especially a lot of just let them play police there anytime you mention you want to teach your kids something, especially for a 3-year-old. And of course, play is good for kids. I think it's okay to gently encourage a 3-year-old for 20 minutes a day, a few times a week, to learn something. And I definitely think it is not harmful to have play themes so they can have exposure to different ideas and learn like animals, cultures, history, and so on. Then the play police would say, hey, they need to just be alone and not be distracted so they can use their imaginations. Don't worry, like 90% of the day, the kids are wandering around the house alone because I am cooking and cleaning. I just don't think it's harmful to give them an enriching experience an hour a day or so when I get to play with them. I just don't know why these moms get so angry if you mention you want to do something for your kids or teach them something. But if you say you want to leave them in a preschool all day with a nanny at night, even if you're a stay-at-home mom, they would never judge you for overwhelming your kids in that situation. So that's kind of odd to me. And they don't want to be judged when they want to do their extreme unschooling, but they feel like they can judge everyone else's parenting. Maybe there's something psychologically going on about that, and I can make a YouTube video about it too. But anyway, I hope that this is helpful for you. And if you have any paid curriculums that you would like to recommend for a 3-year-old, please let me know in the comments below. Daily schedule. So I have all these homeschooling goals, all these dreams, and now how do I take this into consideration for a daily routine? First of all, for this age, I don't believe in schedules. I use checklists and we get to it when we get to it. If I don't get to the items at the end of the list that day, it gets carried over to the next day maybe. Or maybe I will scan over the list another day to see what I haven't done in a while. Basically, I make sure no daily activity is on the back burner. I use Google Keep for my checklists and have it as a widget on my phone so I see it at all times and I don't forget. We only do homeschooling from like Monday to Thursday, let's say, and have fun for the rest of the week. So here's an example of my daily checklist. Play a French album in the mornings, then classical music, read 3 books or 20 minutes in English and French, 10-minute literacy activity, dance to at least one song, 30 minutes free play outside minimum, meditation, 10-minute cleanup, daily cartoon, must be in French or Spanish, and then we have some time for weekly core activities and our monthly core activity. It would be nice if we could also have activities that build on their fine motor skills and maybe a page of a pre-K workbook. And then there's something called spontaneous thinking activities that are apparently helpful. For our weekly core curriculum, on Mondays, I like to focus on music and language, so we'll read more books than usual. I'll sing more songs than usual. Tuesday, I'll talk about shapes in creative ways, like we have a kaleidoscope, binoculars. I just think about things we can do with shapes. Wednesday, arts and crafts. I really bring out the markers, the crayons, and all that out. And the super big paper, coloring books and all that. On Thursdays, we do math, numbers, puzzles, that sort of thing, and try to do some Spanish. And Friday, we focus on having fun. I'm not going to list everything for each month because that would be too much, but here are some examples of some of the topics we emphasize on each month. So in August, I really emphasize on reading, really extra emphasis. And then we do science experiments as well, and ancient Egypt, gardening. It's gardening season in August here in Texas. And we talk about All About Me because he just turns 3 or 4. That's when his birthday is, actually. And in September, again, it's part of our gardening season here. So we do that and learn about biking because the weather is good for it, music, reading, that sort of stuff. October, reading again, arts and crafts because it's Halloween, so there's lots of arts and crafts for Halloween. November, a lot of pretend play. In December, what we do is math, cooking, nutrition, because Christmas is all about cooking and making gingerbread houses and all that. So I think it's a good time to do a cooking theme that month. And safety, of course, because hey, you want to be safe in the kitchen. Teaching methods. Teaching 3-year-olds can be tricky, and I wanted to do a good job. Since their attention spans are short, we have to be super effective in teaching in a small amount of time. I really recommend lesson planning. Our literacy and math lessons were only literally 10 minutes. I had a timer on my phone for 10 minutes, and that's all I needed for my kid to learn how to read and know the concept of adding. I'm not even joking. And I actually even started with 5 minutes on my timer. I actually have a video that goes into detail on how I taught reading to my son, so you can check that in the link below. And yes, it was challenging. I admit I had to offer a prize pretty much all the time or he wouldn't practice reading or counting. Prize being chocolates or something sugary, which is actually not good for their brains. So this isn't supposed to be perfect, but I'm just saying. Anyway, I tried to incorporate what we learned into a pretend game. I tried to make it fun. There are also a lot of little tricks for retaining information, like drinking a glass of water before learning. Learning acquisition is a big topic. There are many books about this subject alone. I recommend reading some of them. Teachers have at least 1 degree and spent 4 years studying the topic of learning and teaching. So I think as homeschooling parents, we should at least try reading one book about best learning practices. The one that I read is called Accelerated Learning Unlocked, 40+ Expert Techniques for Rapid Skill Acquisition and Memory Improvement, the step-by-step guide for beginners to quickly cut your study time for anything new in half, by John R. Torrance. It's for adults actually, but I adapted some parts of it for a toddler. I mean, it's not harmful to drink water before learning. That's one of their recommendations. And they'll say you can focus on something for 25 minutes as an adult. So I guess I'm assuming for a toddler it could be 5 to 10 minutes. What teaching methods and tricks do you recommend? Leave a comment below. I'm always open to new ideas. Foundations of homeschooling. In my opinion, you need to optimize your physical and mental health to make the most of your skills. If you are not motivated or easily overwhelmed, how much use are you going to get out of knowing 4 languages or having a PhD? So that side is extremely important. It's really the foundations. So it's not too early to think about this for your toddler. I'm not an expert, and I think it's important to listen to the experts. I read a lot of books from reputable people to hear what they have to say. It is really important to not be blinded by survivor bias, which sounds like, oh, I went through being hit or doing no chores, anything like that, and I turned out all right, you know? I ate junk, I turned out all right. I don't know, I never studied and now I make all this money, you know? But maybe you are a statistical rarity, but there's always room for improvement, and we want to increase the odds. We want to increase the odds, that's the key word here, odds of success in our child. This is generally the consensus I got from the books I read. Like for physical health, you really need to make sure to get exercise that's appropriate for their age, such as dancing, tag, running in the playground, long walks, anything where they are moving that also involves fun. Also, make sure they are eating good food, of course, and getting their sleep. For mental health, which is not always obvious, there are a lot of things to consider for a child so they stay motivated, focused, mentally strong, and happy. What I learned from these books is that fun is actually good for the brain. So it is important to act extra silly and playful whenever you can. Being loving is important. Extra hugs, extra kindness whenever you can is so important. This is not permissible parenting, and it is not spoiling your kids. Giving them choices is also extremely important. That I didn't know. I look for any opportunity to give choices. I offer my son what books he wants to read from a pile, or what toy he wants to play for the day, or what music he wants to listen to. Like we listen to French music, of course, but he can choose which French artists. You know, we have like 5 or 6 that he chooses from. So I try not to impose as much as possible. I want him to feel like he has a command of his situation. Correctly resolve upsetting situations using empathy. I was raised with dismissing emotions such as don't cry, get over it, don't be sad. And the worst, whenever I voiced what was upsetting to me, I always got a denial, which sounds like, oh, that's not true. That's not what happened. So apparently that is super wrong. You always have to validate feelings. And there is a way to do this that this book fully explains. It's called The Whole Brain Child. 12 Revolutionary Strategies to Nurture Your Child's Developing Mind by Daniel J. Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson. I highly recommend this book. It was so helpful. They tell you like everything you need to know to talk to your child in a mentally healthy way in case like you didn't get that treatment as a kid. So I had to kind of like learn how to do this. And the cheat sheet at the back is so helpful for busy parents who don't have time to read books. I'm just summarizing what I learned, and I highly recommend these other books for further learning about mental health and setting your kids up mentally for success, like Brain Rules for Baby, How to Raise a Smart and Happy Child from 0 to 5 by John Medina, The Self-Driven Child, The Science and Sense of Giving Your Kids More Control Over Their Lives by Ned Johnson and William Strickstrod, The Montessori Toddler, A Parent's Guide to Raising a Curious and Responsible Human Being by Simone Davies. Are there any other books and tips you find helpful? Leave a comment in the description below. I am always open to hearing new ideas, and I love book recommendations. So I hope all these recommendations and ideas will help you out. I hope it wasn't overwhelming. I'm so passionate about this topic, and to do this job, you really need to be passionate about it. And I'm only sharing ideas that were helpful for me. So if you have any ideas that were helpful for you, please share them in the comments below.